What's up, guys? Rick here with your betting and one and done preview for this week's American Express. In this video, I will go through the outright betting market. We'll talk through some head-to-head matchups, and then we will go through some one and done options. Obviously, this week was very different than most weeks because we had a seismic withdrawal right after salaries were released, after the odds were already out. So that impacted everything. We'll talk through all of that. And don't forget, Wednesday, there are 2 live chats. So 3 p.m. Eastern Time and 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. We're going to go through final American Express stuff and then IPO closing of Jock Market, which is Stock Market DFS. Finally, if you have not taken advantage of your free bets over at William Hill yet, you can do so. RickRunGood.com/Will Hill. I've got a handful of states up there: New Jersey, Illinois, and Indiana. Hope to be live in Michigan and Colorado soon. It's free money. It helps you. It helps me. You do not have to make the bets just on golf. You can bet them on Super Bowl, playoffs, whatever you want. So check it out. See if you are eligible. Otherwise, let's jump into this week's American Express. All right, what you're looking at right now is the tournament predictor tool. I've simulated the American Express 500 times. These simulation results continue to get better and better each week. I think they are still giving a bit too much credence to some of the more volatile golfers. I've toned that down a little bit. We are getting closer and closer to really good results. But right now, I think it treats the favorites really well. I think it treats the long shots really well. But some of the really volatile guys like Sepp Straka seem to get way more win equity than they probably should. So this is just a cautionary tale. You should not be blindly following anything on the internet, and this tool is included. This is a way to identify potential values. You should also run them through your own brain. Dig deeper into some of these guys and see if they're worth a bet for you. But before we even get into all of this, Jon Rahm was in this field. He was in the DraftKings and FanDuel player pools. He was on the betting board, and he withdrew, which moved the markets pretty significantly. So I was kind of tracking this yesterday. So DraftKings got rid of Rahm, who, first of all, it's rare to have a guy who's, somewhere between 5.5 to 7.5 to 1 withdraw, and his odds are basically half that of the next golfer. So there was a pretty big chasm there. There was a big hole to fill when Rahm withdrew. So DraftKings immediately moved Cantlay from like 15 or 16 to 1 to 12. They immediately moved Reed to 14, Finau and Scheffler to 16, and then Answer and Wolf to 22. Then I think that was a bit of a panic move by DraftKings, to be quite honest, because just a minute or two later, you saw the numbers start to settle in a little bit longer. They moved Cantlay and Reed back a hair. They moved Finau and Scheffler back a hair. Wolf back to 23 and Answer to 30. So if you were paying attention, Answer in a matter of minutes went from like 35 to the panic move that DraftKings made to not get smoked on this to 22, then all the way back to 30. So hopefully you were not one of the people who snagged him in the few minutes that he was 22 to 1. Now, the big thing was that William Hill still hung the lines on. They still had Rahm out there for 41 minutes by my count. It took them 41 minutes after the news broke for them to finally adjust. So that means for 41 minutes, Patrick Cantlay was still at 16 to 1. Reed was still at 20. Finau and Scheffler were at 22. Wolf at 28 and Answer at 35. They eventually adjusted that down just a hair, quite honestly. Cantlay to 14, Reed to 16, Finau to 20, Answer down to 30, Wolf down to 25. So, William Hill doesn't always have some of the best lines, but they were a little bit slow to move here, and I think that they might have gotten taken advantage of a little bit. Now, I will say this. My strategy for this week kind of got thrown out the door because I panic bought a lot of the guys at the top. So I quickly snagged, and I want to make sure I have this right, Patrick Cantlay at 16 while that number was still hanging out there. I grabbed, excuse me, I want to say I got Wolf at 25 before he dropped, or I'm sorry, at 28 before he dropped down to Some places 19, some places William Hill finally at 25. So, my card is a bit top heavy this week because it's rare that we get a favorite who removes himself from the field and the win equity that creates for the rest of the top guys, and then the odds were still standing out there. So my betting card is not as balanced this week as I normally would have liked, but it's kind of rare. So looking at the model, Patrick Cantlay, I do have winning this golf tournament more often than most, and it's probably too much, to be quite frank. He won in my simulations 13% of the time. That's a lot. That's a lot in a full field. His implied odds, even at 14-1, is only 7%. So clearly, Patrick Cantlay is probably not going to win this tournament 13% of the time, but does he win it 8 or 9? Does he win it 10? That would be significant value in an outright market if the answer is yes. Surprisingly enough, Scotty Scheffler was next in my simulation. He won it 10% of the time, so I believe that there's value there. Again, he probably doesn't win this golf tournament 10% of the time. He's never won on the PGA Tour, right? But does he win at 8%? Does he win at 7%? Still, that is value when you look at his implied odds at 5.6-1. And then the one that I think, or maybe the two guys that this really starts to bear out on, and I really, really like, are Reed and Wolf. Reed is a winner, which is important, and he won in my simulations 9% of the time. Odds makers have him winning about 6.3%. That would be a value. And then Matthew Wolf is not a prolific winner yet. But the upside that he has shown, especially in the last 6 or 7 months, has been phenomenal. He won in my simulation 6.2% of the time. And then you get some long shots. It's no surprise that Sam Burns, who I've spent a lot of oxygen on this week, he won at 5.4% of the time. Again, that's too much, but the model and the simulation looks at recent form. It looks at tournament history. It looks at some of your trends, right? How often and how many strokes you are gaining to the field, and Sam Burns gets a big boost in all of those categories. So I'm surprised to see him this high, but I'm not surprised to see him being listed as one of the better values. I think that makes a ton of sense. So the way that I filled out my card, a bit top heavy this week. If I would have built it in a more balanced approach, it probably would have included, Matthew Wolf. It probably would have included Abraham Answer, trying to give him one last crack at this. After coming off of that miscut from last week, which disappointed a lot of people. It would have included Sam Burns anyway. It would have included Doc Redman. It would have included, there was somebody else at 110-1. Or like post. Oh, actually, it will also include, and I actually did get this, Kramer Hickok. Kramer Hickok was in so if you did not watch the Sleepers video on RickRunGood, on the RickRunGood YouTube channel, he made the Sleepers video, and I'm gaining a lot of steam on him. He's been playing well recently. He was great from tee to green last week. He was like 175-1 when I got a bet in on him. So that is a guy that if you're sprinkling long shots, which historically, last couple of years, Adam Long wins at 500-1 at this event. Andrew Landry wins at 200-1. I mean, we've seen some long shot winners here because it's a unique event, unique course rotation, kind of weird. You have to make a lot of birdies. A lot of these guys can get hot. And some of these like guys who cut their teeth in mini tours or Corn Ferry Tour events, like they know how to go low. Like you have to go low to win those. You have to go low to Monday qualify. You have to go low to do that. You get on these two courses for this week, you're going to have to go low. So I do this week more than most like a lot of these really, really long shots. So keep that in mind. Let's look at some head-to-head, see if we can find a bit of value. All right, the head-to-head matchup tool, by far, well, I shouldn't say that. One of my favorite tools on the website. You can choose any time frame that you want, dating back to like 2005. You can run two golfers against one another and see who's most likely to win a 4-round matchup. And the first one that caught my eye here is Taylor Gooch versus Patton Kizzire. And I think that while not sexy, I think this is where you kind of beat the books a little bit, right? These kind of unknown golfers with, lots of different trends and lots of volatility and not a lot of handle coming in on them. I think this is kind of where you do it. So right now, DraftKings has Patton Kizzire in a favorite in this matchup, -118 versus Taylor Gooch, -106. I have this significantly in the favor of Taylor Gooch. 63%, in fact. I have Taylor Gooch should be a minus 172 favorite to Patton Kizzaire's plus 172. Obviously, no juice included in that. The thing that I assume books are rolling with is Kizzaire's run from basically Houston to now. But that just got him out of a long-term hole. If you're looking at the visual in the video version of this, I mean, the guy's been underwater, under zero in terms of strokes gained since January of 2020. You know what I mean? He's been until like last week. And Gooch has been consistently over. He's been a bit flat recently. We actually haven't even seen him play in quite some time. We haven't seen him play since, I want to say Mayakoba was his last, or Houston was his last event. Yeah. So to me, this is kind of a no-brainer. I know Kizzaire played well at Sony, I believe it was, but this is silly. I think it's a Gooch side in a big way. Okay, here's one that catches my eye. Tony Finau versus Scottie Scheffler. That's pretty interesting. Finau, a significant favorite in this matchup. So we'll go Finau versus Scottie. Okay. I have Finau winning this 54% of the time. Minus 118. He's minus 125. That makes sense with the juice. Scottie plus 118 in my model, plus 100. So this is a no bet. You couldn't bet this. Neither side is good enough, quite frankly. But interesting to see. So Finau is 54% over Scottie Scheffler. I didn't know what I expected when I plugged those two names in, but we have a lot of rounds on both of them. Both of them in an upward trend. They've leveled off a bit recently over the course of the last couple of starts, but still the nod to Finau. But I wonder how long that'll be. Scottie Scheffler certainly blooming into a great player in his own right. Let's see if I can find one more bet here. How about Cantlay Reed? We can just do two of the big players here. So Cantlay's minus 118 and Reed is minus 106. So a couple of Patricks. So we'll do Patrick Cantlay versus Patrick Reed. Wow, it's really close. Okay, so I have Cantlay winning this 51% of the time, putting him at minus 104. He's minus 118 on DraftKings. Patrick Reed, 49%, plus 104. He's minus 106. So you can't bet either one of these either, but very, very close, which, you know what? This is a really good time to probably remind people of this. Not only do I use this head-to-head tool to look up matchups, right? And a lot of times they're very, very close and there's not a lot of edge in them, or you have to go and find, Taylor Gooch versus Patton Kizzire or whatever it is. But what I also use this for is to break ties. Think about it from a DraftKings perspective. Cantlay and Reed are two golfers who are both over $10,000. Now, I don't know what the ownership is going to be on these golfers come Thursday morning. We can have projected ownership on Wednesday. We can talk through that on the live chat. But one of them is probably going to be significantly more owned than the other. Patrick Cantlay probably going to be significantly owned. So in a head-to-head matchup with one another, Patrick Reed beats Patrick Cantlay 49% of the time. So if Patrick Cantlay was 30% owned and Patrick Reed was 10% owned, you'd almost have to roster Reed over him because half the time Reed is going to be better than Cantlay, and he is at 1/3 of the ownership. That is a very round, simple example, but this is a way that I break ties in ownership. I will come in here Wednesday evenings and I will pump all this stuff in here and say, okay, here's a couple of ownerships that I have that I think are too far off. Are they right? And this is a really good way to just look at two golfers against one another. That is how I use it. I encourage you to use it the same way, and I think you will find yourself in better positions in larger GPPs so that you can have a bit of an edge in terms of game theory, a bit of leverage and ownership, and you're not leaving much on the table in terms of player performances against one another. So keep that in mind. Let's run over to the one and done. So quick update on the Run Good one and done. Remember, we started at the beginning of the season, so we are 14 weeks in. This is week 15. The biggest winners last week were Joaquin Neiman. Nobody had Kevin Na. There was a lot of Webb Simpson. There was a lot of Daniel Berger. So, almost everybody got a couple $100,000. So there wasn't much movement at the top. Brandon K9 continues to hold his lead over a storm of Shanks. That is less than $150,000 separating those two. Rex Grant, J Key, and Swarm are rounding out the top five. I think I'm in like 120th. I added ranks here, by the way, which I thought was handy, so you guys can see where you're at. Out of 360 of us. So this is rocking and rolling. But a lot of you are making your second picks, whether it is presumably your one and done started at the Sony. That's the natural starting point for a lot of these. So there was, I know, a ton of Berger picks. There was a lot of Webb Simpson picks. There was a lot of Abraham Answer picks, unfortunately. There was a lot of Sung Jae Im picks. I think those were probably the four most popular golfers from last week. And looking towards this week, it is certain that Patrick Cantlay is going to be one of the most used golfers. And when you think about Patrick Cantlay and you think about using him over the course of an entire season, are you going to use him at a major? Probably not. There's a lot of good golfers. You probably don't need to use Patrick Cantlay at a major. Are you going to use him at a WGC event? Again, probably not. Those are stacked fields. Cantlay, whether he's the 10th, 11th, 12th best golfer in the world, something like that, you don't necessarily have to use him. Are you going to use him at a place that he's won before? I mean, you could use him at the Memorial. You could use him at Shriners. I guess Shriners is probably the natural fit for him, right? And depending on your one and done, you do not have the Shriners in your schedule because you probably go from Sony to BMW. So you don't get the fall portion of the schedule. So all that being said, based on all of those things, the most natural fit for Cantlay, you don't get to use, and you're probably not going to use him anywhere else. You should probably use him this week, right? The removal of Jon Rahm from this field adds so much win equity to Patrick Cantlay. And I was looking this up the other day, and I kind of couldn't believe it. Cantlay missed the cut at the Northern Trust at the end of 2020. That was his first missed cut in a long time. In fact, going back to the 2019 Players Championship was the last time he missed the cut, meaning that in his last 32 events, Patrick Cantlay has won twice and missed the cut once. So he has not burned you basically at any point. If you ever wanted to use him in a one and done or any situation like that, he's gotten you some type of dollars, and now he is the betting favorite. So long story short, Patrick Cantlay in a vacuum is the best play this week in terms of one and done. Now, if you want to be a little bit different, if you want to go to Patrick Reed, I think that's fine, right? He can get hot. He can make birdies in bunches. If you want to go to, I think the next natural landing place would be Matthew Wolff, who, with Matthew Wolff, we really have to throw out a lot of even the stuff from like 18 months ago and 12 months ago, because he has gotten so much better in the last 6 months. You really have to look at it from a very micro standpoint with him. And I know he missed the cut at the Masters. He struggled down the stretch. Maybe he was a little bit tired, long season, a sprint at the end. But what he did from basically Rocket Mortgage to Shriners was unbelievable. He had 3 runner-up finishes. He finished 4th at the PGA Championship. The guy was contending nearly every single week. He could make a bunch of birdies. People don't realize what a good putter he is because he's got that unique swing and he bombs it off the tee. He's a great putter. I like Matthew Wolff as a plug here, and I wouldn't mind using him in a one and done because, again, what's his natural fit? I'm not sure he has one. You're not going to play him in a major championship. You could probably get him maybe if he goes back to 3M, right? A place that he's won in the past. He'll have one of the shortest odds there. But I'm looking at the betting board. He's like 6th or 7th on the betting board. So he is technically, one of the favorites for this week. The probably most natural course fit is Adam Hadwin, right? He's had a bunch of great success here. He shot a 59 at this event. If you were really a glutton for punishment, why not Abe Answer? I mean, I know that he missed a cut where he was very popular last week. You can go back one more time. You can forgive and forget. Go back one more time to a place he finished runner-up at last year. I don't hate it. I really don't. And I think that you're getting the opportunity to get the guy who's 7th in the betting odds at a very, very low number, because you either used him last week or you saw what he did last week and you don't want to use him this week. I think it's pretty interesting. So, hey, keep that in mind. Obviously, it's very early in the year. You can shuffle this out a couple of different ways. So find what's best for you. Let me know which way you're going. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. Best of luck this week, and I'll talk to you guys soon.